hand cracked across the side of a girl's face. Her head snapped sideways. A second slap came before she could even straighten up. She was small, 14, maybe 15, standing in a schoolyard with her arms at her sides. She didn't fight back. She didn't run. 3 older girls circled her, laughing. One of them grabbed a fistful of her hair and yanked her head back. "Say it again," the tallest one said. "Say sorry." The girl's lip was bleeding. Her knees were shaking. But she didn't cry. Not once. She just stood there, chin up, taking it. Somebody recorded the whole thing on a phone. That video went viral within hours. And when it reached one particular man, a man the whole world knew by name, Jackie Chan, everything changed. What happened next made those bullies wish they'd never raised a hand. Stay with me on this one. Her name was Jilan. She was 15 years old. Quiet. Small for her age. The kind of kid who sat near the back of the classroom and never raised her hand unless she was sure of the answer. She had transferred to the Green Hill International Academy 6 months earlier. A private school on the outskirts of the city. Nice campus. Manicured lawns. The kind of place where tuition costs more than most people earn in a year. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's parents, everyone else's money, and everyone else's business. Jilan didn't tell anyone who her father was. That was the deal. Jackie Chan had been clear about it from the start. "You go to school as yourself," he told her. "Not as my daughter. You earn your own place." She understood. She respected it. And for the first few months it worked. She kept her head down. She studied hard. She wore the same uniform as everyone else. No driver dropped her off. No bodyguard waited at the gate. She walked in alone every morning like any other kid. She ate lunch by herself most days. Read books during free period. Made a few polite acquaintances but no real friends. She was invisible. And for a while invisible felt safe. But there was a problem. And the problem had a name. Megan Cole. Megan was 17. Tall. Loud. The kind of girl who owned every room she walked into because nobody dared tell her otherwise. Her father was Richard Cole, a real estate developer with more money than manners and more lawyers than friends. He sat on the school board. He funded the new gymnasium. His name was on a brass plaque in the front lobby. And Megan knew it. She moved through that school like she had a permanent hall pass. Teachers looked the other way. Students moved aside. That's how it worked. The bullying started small. A shoulder bump in the hallway. A comment about Jilan's accent. A notebook knocked off her desk during class. A whispered joke during an assembly. Nothing that left a mark. Nothing you could report without sounding like you were making a big deal out of nothing. But it added up. Day after day. Week after week. That's how bullying works. It's not always one big event. It's 1,000 small ones. And each one says the same thing. You don't belong here. Megan had 2 girls who followed her everywhere. Tara and Jessica. They weren't leaders. They were amplifiers. Whatever Megan started, they made louder. If Megan made a joke, they laughed the hardest. If Megan pushed, they blocked the exit. They weren't cruel on their own. They were cruel in formation. By the 3rd month, it had gotten worse. Jilan found her gym clothes thrown in a toilet. Her homework was torn up and left on the floor of the bathroom. Someone scratched the word mute into her locker with a key. One morning she found a note in her bag that said, "Go back to where you came from." She didn't tell anyone. Not the teachers. Not her mother. And not her father. Especially not her father. Because here's the thing about growing up with Jackie Chan. He didn't raise a victim. But he also didn't raise a fighter. Not in the way people think. He raised a girl who understood discipline. Who understood that the strongest thing you can do is not the thing people expect. Before she ever attended a formal school, Jilan had trained with her father. Not movie stunts. Real martial arts. Balance. Breathing. Control. Hours of standing still. Hours of learning to wait. Jackie had given her a jade bracelet on her 12th birthday. A simple piece. Cool green stone, smooth to the touch. He told her, "This is a reminder. You always have the power to strike. The bracelet reminds you not to. She wore it every single day. She touched it when Megan shoved past her. She touched it when Tara laughed in her face. She touched it when the word mute stared back at her from that locker. And she kept walking, head up, mouth shut, hands still, every day, for months. But discipline has a limit, and Megan was about to find it. It happened on a Thursday, lunch period, the courtyard behind the science building. That's where Megan liked to hold court. A dozen students gathered around like it was a show. And on that day it was. Jilan was walking through the courtyard carrying a tray. She wasn't looking for trouble. She was looking for a bench. Megan stepped into her path. "Hey, Chinese girl." Jilan stopped. She didn't respond. "I'm talking to you." Still nothing. Megan stepped closer. Tara and Jessica moved to either side. A triangle closing in. "You think you're better than us?" Megan said. Her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "You don't talk to anyone. You walk around like we don't exist." Jilan kept her eyes level. "I'm just trying to eat lunch," she said. Quiet. Polite. That was the wrong answer. Megan didn't want polite. She wanted fear. She wanted tears. And when she didn't get them, she made something happen. The first slap came fast. Open hand, right across Jilan's cheek. The tray hit the ground. Rice and vegetables scattered across the concrete. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Jilan didn't fall. She stumbled half a step and then caught herself. She just stood there. The side of her face went red immediately. And then the second one came. Harder. From the other side. Megan was grinning now. "Say sorry," she said. Jilan's lips split. A thin line of blood ran down her chin. She didn't wipe it. She didn't move. She didn't make a sound. Tara laughed. Jessica said, "She's not even going to do anything." A few kids in the crowd shifted their weight. Uncomfortable but not uncomfortable enough to act. And one of the boys, a kid named Derek, he pulled out his phone and started recording. Not to help. Not to report it. To post it. Megan grabbed a fistful of Jilan's hair and yanked her head back. Hard enough that Jilan's neck arched. "I said, say sorry." The courtyard was silent now. Nobody stepped in. Nobody said stop. A few kids looked away, but most of them watched. Some of them even smiled. That's the part that gets to you. Not just the bully, but the crowd that lets it happen. The audience that turns violence into entertainment. Jilan's hands stayed at her sides. Her fingers curled once. Just once. Then relaxed. She could have done something. Believe me, she could have. Her father had taught her how to redirect a grab like that in under a second. She knew exactly where to place her weight. Exactly where to strike to make someone let go. But her father's voice was louder than the pain. "The bracelet reminds you not to." So she stood there. She took it. And she waited. It lasted maybe 90 seconds. But 90 seconds of being hit in front of a crowd feels like an hour. A teacher finally came around the corner. Mr. Gallagher. He saw the blood on Jilan's face, the crowd, and Megan standing too close. What happened here? Nobody answered. Megan stepped back. Shrugged. She tripped. Mr. Gallagher looked at Jilan. "Is that true?" Jilan looked at the ground. "Yes," she said. "I tripped." He didn't believe it. But without a witness willing to talk, there wasn't much he could do. That night she came home with a swollen cheek and a split lip. She told her mother she walked into a door. Her mother, Lynn, looked at her for a long time. Said nothing. But mothers know. They always know. She called Jackie that evening. He was overseas, finishing a promotional tour in London. "Something happened at school," Lynn said. "She won't tell me, but it's bad." Jackie got on a plane the next morning. He arrived home by evening. Jilan was in her room, door closed. He knocked. She opened it. He looked at her face. His eyes moved from the bruise on her cheek to the cut on her lip. He said nothing for a long time. Then he asked, "Who?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," he said. She sat on the edge of her bed. "Some girls at school. It's nothing. I handled it." He sat next to her. He didn't press. He just sat there. He put his hand on her shoulder. She leaned into him for just a second, then straightened up. "I'm fine, Dad." He nodded. But he wasn't fine. Not even close. Later that night, after Jilan had gone to bed, Jackie opened his laptop. He didn't have to look hard. The video had already spread. Somebody had posted it to social media with the caption, "Girl gets what she deserves." It had 40,000 views. Jackie watched it once. His jaw tightened. He watched it again. His hands went flat on the table. He watched it a third time. He saw his daughter's face. He saw the blood. He saw the crowd doing nothing. Then he closed the laptop. Slowly, carefully, the way a man closes something when he's trying very hard not to break it. He called the school the next morning. The vice principal, Mrs. Harding, answered. Jackie kept his voice level. He described what he saw on the video. He asked what the school planned to do about it. Mrs. Harding said they were looking into it. She said they took all reports of conflict seriously. She said the school had a zero-tolerance policy. Jackie said, "Then why is my daughter's face on a video being shared by thousands of people?" Mrs. Harding said she would need to review the footage and consult with staff. She said these things take time. She used the word process for times. Jackie hung up. He sat in the kitchen for a long time. He made tea, poured it slowly, held the cup with both hands the way he always did. An old habit. Something he'd done since he was a boy training in the Peking Opera School. Back then, a cup of tea after practice was the only quiet moment he got in a day full of discipline and pain. It still meant the same thing to him. A pause, a breath, a chance to think before acting. He drank it in silence. The house was quiet. Jilan was asleep. Lin was reading in the other room. The whole thing felt still, settled, like the worst was over and all that was left was paperwork and phone calls. He told himself the school would handle it. He told himself the video would fade. He told himself everything would be fine. The next morning, a second video appeared. It was recorded after the attack. Same courtyard, maybe 20 minutes later. Megan was sitting on a bench with Tara and Jessica, still buzzing from what they'd done. Megan held up her phone, playing back the original footage. "Watch her face," she said. "She just stands there like a mannequin." They laughed harder. Then Megan leaned into the camera and said, "If she shows up tomorrow, it's going to be worse. Way worse." Tara added, "We'll make sure she remembers it this time." That video spread faster than the first one. Twice as many shares. 3 times the comments. Now here's the thing. The first video was cruelty. The second was a threat. A documented, public, recorded threat against a specific student. That changes everything. This wasn't a one-time incident anymore. It was targeted, planned, escalating. And the school still hadn't done a single thing about it. Jackie saw it that morning. Lynn showed him on her phone. He didn't watch it twice this time. He set his tea down. He stood up. He put on his jacket and drove to the school. No call ahead. No appointment. No warning. He walked through the front door of Greenhill International Academy at 8:45 in the morning and stood in the main lobby like he'd been carved out of granite. Now, imagine you're a receptionist at a private school. You're sorting mail, answering phones, doing the same thing you do every morning. You look up. Jackie Chan is standing in your lobby. Not on a screen. Not on a poster. Not in a movie. Right there. In person. 6 feet away. Arms folded. Face like stone. You don't ask for ID. You don't ask him to sign in. You just pick up the phone and call the principal. Within 10 minutes, the principal was there. Dr. Alan Whitmore. A thin man with round glasses and a careful voice. He brought Jackie into his office, offered him water, and started talking about processes and protocols and the proper channels for addressing student grievances. Jackie let him finish. Every word. Then he said, "I've seen both videos. The school has had them for over 12 hours. My daughter was assaulted on your property. And the girl who did it posted a public threat to do it again. What exactly are you waiting for?" Dr. Whitmore shifted in his chair. He said the school needed to hear all sides. He said the students involved would be spoken to. He said there were procedures. Jackie said, "Spoken to? They need to be held accountable. Not spoken to. There's a video with 100,000 views showing a girl being hit on your campus. There's a second video with an explicit threat. What procedure covers that?" Dr. Whitmore nodded like a man who agreed with every word but couldn't do a thing about it. That's when Jackie said he wanted a formal meeting. All parents, all students involved, an administrator, a mediator, the full table, face to face. Dr. Whitmore hesitated. He said that would require parental consent from the other families. Jackie said, "Get it." Word got out fast. Jackie Chan was at the school. People recognized his car in the parking lot. A black sedan that wasn't flashy but wasn't anonymous either. By the time he left the building, a small crowd had gathered by the front gate. A few parents doing drop-off. Some older students. 2 people with phones out recording. A local reporter had already been tipped off. The story was moving faster than the school could manage. That afternoon, Richard Cole called the school. Megan's father. He was furious. Not at his daughter. Not at what his daughter had done. At Jackie. He told Dr. Whitmore that his family would not be publicly humiliated by a celebrity with a grudge. He said if Jackie Chan wanted a fight, he'd get one. In court, he mentioned his lawyer by name. He mentioned the school's liability insurance. He mentioned the donation he'd made to the new building. He said the words "my attorney" 6 times in one phone call. Dr. Whitmore folded. He called Jackie back and said the meeting might not be possible. The other family has concerns about privacy and the potential for media involvement. Jackie listened. Then he said one sentence. Calm. Even. No anger. "If the school won't do the right thing, I'll do it publicly. And I don't think anyone in that family wants that." There was a long silence on the phone. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened in that room is something nobody saw coming. The weekend before the meeting was tense. Richard Cole hired a crisis communications consultant. His lawyer sent a formal letter to the school warning of defamation claims and potential lawsuits. Megan posted nothing. Her social media went silent overnight. Her Instagram, which usually had 3 posts a day, went dark. For the first time in 2 years, she had no audience and no power. She was just a 17-year-old kid sitting in a house while her father made phone calls in the other room. Jackie spent that weekend differently. He didn't call lawyers. He didn't call the press. He didn't give interviews. He sat with Jilon. They trained together in the backyard the way they'd done since she was small. Not combat. Forms. Balance drills. Breathing. He made her practice a single movement over and over. A straight punch that stopped 1 inch before the target. Full speed. Full power. But it stopped. Every time. Right there. 1 inch from contact. "You stop here," he said. "Always here. The inch is the lesson." She didn't ask why. She just practiced. 100 times. 200. Until her arm was tired and her form was perfect. Monday morning. 9 o'clock sharp. The conference room at Green Hill International Academy. Long table. 12 chairs. Water glasses laid out like it was a business deal. Dr. Whitmore sat at the head. Mrs. Harding beside him. A school counselor named Dr. Park sat at the far end with a notepad. On one side, Jackie Chan, his wife Lynn, and Jilon. The bruise on her cheek had faded to yellow. Her lip had healed, but the scar was still visible. On the other side, Richard Cole, his wife Sandra, Megan, and their lawyer. A man named Philip Greer who wore a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Tara and Jessica were there too, seated at the far end with their mothers. Both women looked like they hadn't slept in days. Tara's mother kept touching her daughter's arm. Jessica's mother stared at the table. The girls themselves sat with their hands in their laps, looking at the floor. They weren't laughing now. The fun was over. Philip Greer spoke first. He said his clients had deep concerns about the nature of this meeting. He said the incident had been blown out of proportion by social media. He said the videos were taken out of context. He used the phrase normal adolescent behavior. He suggested that all parties would benefit from putting this behind them quietly. Jackie didn't interrupt. He let the man finish every syllable. Then he turned to Dr. Whitmore and said, "Can we see the video?" A laptop was opened at the center of the table. The courtyard footage played. The room went silent. You could hear the slap through the laptop speakers. You could hear Megan say sorry. You could see the blood appear on Gilan's lip. Nobody in that room moved. Sandra Cole put her hand over her mouth. When it ended, Jackie said, "Play the second one." The second video played. Megan laughing. Megan replaying the footage like a trophy. Megan looking into the camera and saying, "If she shows up tomorrow, it's going to be worse." When it stopped, the room felt like it had no air in it. Jackie looked across the table. Not at the lawyer. Not at Richard Cole. At Megan. He said, "Stand up." The room went still. Megan looked at her father. Richard Cole started to speak. Jackie raised one hand. Not aggressively. Not fast. Just enough to say, "Wait. I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I'm asking you to stand up." Megan pushed back her chair and stood. Her legs were shaking. Jackie pushed his chair back and stood. He walked to the center of the room. Slowly, every eye followed him. He took a stance. Feet shoulder-width apart. Hands up, one fist drawn back. The room held its breath. In one motion, he threw a strike. His fist moved so fast that half the room flinched. Philip Greer jerked backward. Sandra Cole gasped. But the fist stopped. 1 inch from the surface of the conference table. Dead still. The water in the glasses didn't even ripple. Not a drop moved. But the sound of the air, that quick snap of displaced air, filled the room. Nobody spoke. Jackie held the position for 3 full seconds. Then he lowered his hand and looked at Megan. "I've been doing this since I was 6 years old," he said. His voice was calm, almost soft. "I've broken concrete with these hands. I've taken hits that would put most grown men in a hospital. I know exactly what a punch can do. I know where to aim. I know how hard to swing. And my daughter, she knows too. She's been training since she could walk." He paused. Let that settle into the silence. "She could have stopped you. All 3 of you. Do you understand that? She had every ability to defend herself in that courtyard. She chose not to. Not because she was afraid. Because I taught her that strength isn't about what you can do to someone. It's about what you choose not to do." He pointed at the laptop screen. "That video. Over 100,000 people watched you slap a girl who didn't fight back. And you thought that made you powerful. Didn't. It showed everyone watching that you needed 3 people and an audience to feel strong. My daughter stood there alone and didn't flinch. She didn't raise her hand. She didn't say a word. And she's stronger than all 3 of you combined." Megan's face was white. Her lip trembled. Her eyes were wet. She looked at the floor. For the first time in maybe her entire life, she had nothing to say. No comeback. No joke. No audience to play to. Just silence and the weight of what she'd done sitting on her chest like a stone. Richard Cole's lawyer started to speak again. Something about emotional manipulation and the coercive nature of the demonstration. Jackie turned to him. "I'm not threatening anyone. I didn't touch anyone. I'm showing you what restraint looks like. That's something your client's daughter hasn't learned yet." He turned back to Megan. "I could have sent lawyers. I could have gone to the press the same day. I could have made this the biggest story in the country with 1 phone call. But I didn't. Because I don't want to destroy you. I want you to learn something." He sat down. He pulled a single piece of paper from a folder and slid it across the table. It outlined 3 conditions. First, a public apology from Megan, Tara, and Jessica to Gilan, delivered in front of the full school assembly. Second, 200 hours of community service, supervised and documented. Third, enrollment in a 6-month martial arts discipline program, supervised by an instructor Jackie personally trusted. Not fighting, not self-defense, discipline, structure, respect. The kind of training that teaches you to hold still when every part of your body wants to lash out. Richard Cole picked up the paper. His jaw was tight. Philip Greer leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Richard shook his head. He didn't like it, not one bit. But his daughter was crying silently across the table. His wife was staring at her hands. The two other mothers hadn't said a single word the entire meeting. And every person in that room had just watched Jackie Chan throw a fist that could have cracked that table in half. And stop it. By choice. 1 inch away. Richard Cole picked up the pen. He signed. The apology happened on a Wednesday. Full school assembly. 600 students in the auditorium. Teachers along the walls. Megan stood at the podium. Tara and Jessica stood behind her. All three wore plain clothes. No makeup. No jewelry. No performance. Megan's voice cracked 3 times. She said she was sorry. She said what she did was wrong. She said she didn't understand how much damage one moment of cruelty could cause until she watched it played back on a screen in a room full of adults who looked at her like they didn't recognize her. She said she was ashamed. And then she said something nobody expected. She looked directly at Jilan, who was sitting in the 3rd row, and said, "You were braver than I've ever been. I hit you and you didn't move. I don't think I could have done that." The auditorium was dead quiet. Not the quiet of boredom. The quiet of 600 people holding their breath. A few teachers were crying. Jilan didn't smile. She didn't nod. She just looked back at Megan with steady eyes. That was enough. The community service started the following week. Megan, Tara, and Jessica were assigned to a youth center downtown, a place called the Westside Community House. They sorted clothing donations. They cleaned floors. They helped run an after-school program for younger kids from the neighborhood. Megan hated it at first. She showed up with her arms crossed and her jaw tight and her sunglasses on like she was doing the world a favor. But after about 3 weeks, something shifted. One of the little kids, a 7-year-old named Marcus, he started asking for her every day, wanted her to help with his reading, wanted to show her his drawings, wanted to sit next to her at snack time. Megan didn't know how to say no to a 7-year-old. Nobody does. And slowly, week by week, something inside her started to crack open. Not break, crack open. There's a difference. The martial arts program was harder. Jackie had arranged it through an old training partner named Sifu-chin. A serious man. No smiles. No shortcuts. The sessions were held 3 times a week in a converted warehouse with concrete floors and no air conditioning. It wasn't about learning to hit. It was about learning to hold still. To breathe when you wanted to scream. To wait when you wanted to act. Megan struggled. The first 2 weeks, she could barely hold a horse stance for 30 seconds without her legs shaking. Tara quit twice but came back both times. Jessica didn't talk much. She just showed up and did the work. After a month, something started to show. Their posture changed. Their voices got quieter. Not weaker, quieter. There's a difference. Jilan went back to school the day after the assembly. She walked through the front gate the same way she always had. Alone. Head up. Backpack on one shoulder. But something was different this time. People looked at her. Not with pity. Not with fear. Not with the kind of attention that makes you want to disappear. Something closer to respect. A few students nodded to her in the hallway. A girl from her English class asked if she wanted to sit together at lunch. She didn't ask for any of it. She didn't perform for it. It just came. Because when people watch someone take a hit and refuse to fall, they don't forget it. The videos eventually faded from the internet the way everything does. But inside that school, the memory stayed. Teachers talked about it for years. Students who weren't even there told the story to younger kids like it was legend. The day Jackie Chan showed up. The fist that stopped 1 inch from the table. The girl who bled and didn't cry. Jackie never spoke about it publicly. No interviews. No press conferences. No social media posts. When reporters called, he said, "It's a family matter." That was it. 2 words and a dial tone. He didn't want credit. He didn't want the story to become about him. He wanted it to stay about his daughter. About what she showed those girls in that courtyard without ever throwing a single punch. A few months later, on a warm evening, Jilan was sitting on the back porch of their house. The street noise was fading. Jackie came out carrying 2 cups of tea. He sat beside her. They didn't talk for a while. Just sat there, side by side, the way they'd done 1,000 times before. Then he said, "You know, the hardest fight I ever had wasn't in a movie. And it wasn't in a tournament." She looked at him. "It was every time someone gave me a reason to hit and I chose not to." She nodded. She understood. She'd lived it. He looked at her wrist. The jade bracelet was still there. Same one he'd given her 3 years ago. A little scuffed now. A little worn from all the times she'd reached for it when the world pressed in too hard. "You know why I gave you that?" he asked. She said, "To remind me not to strike." He shook his head. "No. To remind you that you could. And that you chose something harder." She smiled. Small. Quiet. The kind of smile that doesn't need an audience. They sat there until the sun went down. 2 cups of tea going cold on the railing. A father and his daughter. One of the most famous men in the world, and a 15-year-old girl who proved that real strength doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs one person who refuses to break.